Welcome to the panel presented by Sport Chek. Looking a little different today, guys. We're in front of the American Airlines Center here in Dallas ahead of the 2018 NHL Draft. I don't know about you, but I'm so excited to be here. Hot, hot, hot.
Absolutely. I'm already one shower deep. I'm projecting about 3.6 on average for the coming weeks. But it is exciting. This is always a fun time because you start speculating as what may happen at the draft. And, of course, a little bit to the west, there's plenty going on as well.
Lots going on in Vegas right now. All eyes are on Vegas tonight for the NHL Awards, and our very own Connor McDavid up for two himself.
Well, he's got one, right, because he won the Art Ross, obviously, and then the players vote for the Lindsay Award, which I think is, in many ways, shapes and forms. Even though the Hart Trophy gets sort of the greatest play, I think we can all agree that the Lindsay, from a player's perspective, you want that respect from your peers. I think, by the way, the Hart Trophy, I'm told, one of the closest votes of all time. We'll see how Connor ultimately does in the Lindsay. Remarkable season, 108 points on a year in which the Edmonton Oilers came in last in the power play. First time in NHL history that a scoring champion, since they've done power play numbers, has been on a team with the worst power play in the league. That bodes well moving forward for the Oilers because you know their power play is going to improve.
And Jess, we try to keep predictions on this panel to a minimum. For the most part, we stay away from it. But here's one. I think Connor McDavid is walking home with back-to-back Ted Lindsays. My hunch is the finalists against whom they've had great years, Taylor Hall and Nathan MacKinnon. But my hunch going around the league and visiting the other 30 National Hockey League cities is there's a certain reverence for Connor McDavid that perhaps Nathan MacKinnon and Taylor Hall do not enjoy among their peers, at least not yet. Connor McDavid's only been in the league 3 years. He's been in the league for less time than those players, but I think he's accrued more reverence, and that's why my strong hunch is that Connor McDavid is going back-to-back Lindsays.
Well, can't wait to see what the results are. Best of luck to Connor McDavid on those two. We are still a couple days out from first-round draft picks this coming Friday. I know your guys' predictions may have changed a little bit, both projecting Ty Smith or Barrett Hayton for first-round draft picks for the Oilers at number 10. What are we thinking now?
I still think that, you know, first of all, I think there's a distinctive top nine. And then I think Hayton and Smith are in that next group with guys like Vitaly Kravtsov and Adam Boqvist. And Boqvist has been a guy that's sort of dropped, I think, in terms of the perception of scouts around the league. And Hayton's a guy who's moved on up. And, you know, it's going to be interesting with Hayton because he is a center. And there's a shortage of centers at the top of the draft, and there's a lot of defensemen in the second round of the draft that might be available as well. So I know Jack picked Hayton, I picked Smith when we did our mock drafts with a thought on Kravtsov as well. I'm kind of sticking with that range, but it wouldn't surprise me if either one of those two guys ended up being the Oilers' pick. But that's dependent upon what happens in the first nine, in case there's a wild card in the top nine, Jack.
Well, and to Jess's point in terms of how our perspective has changed a little bit, I do think that there is going to be one surprise. I think there's going to be someone leaking down to number 10 that might make it more difficult for the Edmonton Oilers. For instance, what if Hayton Smith and someone else is out there? Maybe a Boqvist, maybe a Kotkaniemi. You never know. And I do think there might be some challenges. On the other hand, you know, what if one of Smith or Hayton go in the top 9 and they don't have to choose between those two? Then I think their pick becomes eminently easier, assuming a guy like Kotkaniemi is not there. Because I think, and this is where Bob and I slightly differ, I think Bob has a slight lean towards the defense. I have more of a slight lean that they'll go down the center ice hole.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, again, you do have the depth in that second round of those defense picks. And so that if all things were equal and you thought you could get a defenseman in the second round, maybe you do look like at the forward in the first round, that spot at 10. Again, if Wallstrom's out there, if Kotkaniemi's out there, if Zadina drops, which is a possibility, we're having a completely different conversation.
Well, I know, Jack, you said it yourself that for our second round pick, number 40, it might just come down to the position itself.
Well, it could, and especially if the Oilers end up drafting a center iceman in the first round. Then you might start looking at position, and you might start looking at that second-tier pool of defenders, which is almost as deep, Bob, I think you'd agree, as the first tier. I mean, there's a lot of defensemen that are going to be going in the second round as well. And again, This draft is so much different from, say, the 2012 or 2013 draft in that you'll see a lot of defensemen 6 feet and under being drafted within the first 50 picks. And I think as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, Bob, you could have counted those on one hand if you even needed one hand.
And so, Bob, let's talk about the possibility for any trades.
The way this usually works, what happens with these teams is it really gets going kind of on the Thursday before the draft. That's when things get jump-started. Now, a wild card has been the Ottawa situation, and what's going to happen there. Obviously, they had as unique of a scenario as possible. Jessica, since certainly you and me have been doing the games together, I can't recall anything like that before. So they've taken the plunge. They've moved on Hoffman. Now the question is, what happens to a guy like Karlsson? The Oilers do not have a lot of cap space to play with here right now. So in Edmonton's case, it's going to have to be money in, money out if they end up making a deal. But I don't think right now anything's imminent, and I do tend to think that conversations start to heat up on the Thursday, the day before the draft.
All right, bottom line here, I'm not going to let him off that easy, Jess. You're relatively new, so you're probably not going to be as hard on him as I will be. So, Bob, bottom line is, Friday night about 8:45, who's wearing this hat?
Either Barrett Hayton or Ty Smith.
Oh, come on!
Or me.
I want to see that. What's the jury?
I think I look pretty good in it. I think I look pretty good in it, guys.
Absolutely.
Better than the two of us, man, I'll tell you that.
I'll just wear it like this for now.
There we go.
So keep it locked on EdmontonOilers.com for all your awards coverage as well as your draft coverage coming up here in a couple days.